20 years old and you are an ultra runner, which I feel like is quite an unusual thing for a 20-year-old to be an ultra runner. And also, when you say ultra running, I feel like it has quite a lot of connotations. Some people, they're ultra runners, but do they actually do that much? You run like 150 kilometers at once. It's pretty much you've earned that title. So can you give me a bit of a background of why you, at the age of 20, are an ultra runner?
It's hard to say like why it happened, but when I was like 15, I tried ultra running, and I think it was like when the pandemic hit, I was like, I need to do something because I was doing orienteering before. And all the competitions were cancelled, and I was like, what do I do with all this time? So then I joined like a local little race that was like just friends. And then from that day on, I said like, this is what I'm going to do for a living. And I'm going to make it happen. Just like how long it takes will just be up to luck, I guess. But I'm going to work hard. And yeah, now at 20, it's 5 years later, I feel like I kind of made my way, and now I do it like as a little bit of kind of influencer slash ultra runner kind of thing, and I'm making it work. So yeah, it's fun.
When you say, okay, I want to be an ultra runner and I want to make a living out of it, unfortunately, running in general, but also ultra running and those kind of more extreme sports, because they're fairly new, they're not really established in terms of making it financially viable. So it is quite a difficult thing in that respect. So it's interesting that you've brought in other elements of it as well. And then you also do a lot of your van life and things like that, which I really want to talk to you about, and just the experience of it. So is that kind of how you've made your own sort of path in life? It seems very authentic, like the choice that you've made to do that.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, I just went all in doing this ultra running thing, and I thought like, if I want to do it all in, I need like a cheap way of living. And I thought that living in a car, that's very cheap, and that's like, then I can do this, I can start now and I can just go full out and see where it takes me. And yeah, then like, because I live in a van, most people can't live off of social media when only having like what do I have, like 24,000 followers. But yeah, I just because I live in a van, I can do that, and then I can also put full effort into it, which makes it much better and which makes it like a full-time job. So yeah, I think that was one of the reasons. And also I want to travel. I want to see the world, and I often get like a little bit tired of the places, like I want to move a lot. And I moved a lot during my childhood, and I just wanted to continue that and continue traveling. And then it actually just happened, and it was a little bit of a spontaneous thing, and now it has been a year.
When you say ultra running, obviously then you have to do a lot of running to be able to complete these massive distances. So can you give me a bit of background of the average week in your life? I want to know a bit, not just about the training, but also just living in a van. What's your average kind of thing? Because obviously I think you take for granted some of the amenities that you don't have in a van. You don't have a shower, you don't have all these things, which simplifies life to a lovely kind of streamlined way of living. But also there will be things that perhaps people won't think about, that you're like, oh yeah, this is actually a big thing that I have to do in my van life.
What comes with van life is obviously like when I lived in my own van. Right now I kind of moved into my boyfriend's van, but back then I had no electricity, I had no fridge, I had no shower. It's like very just a place to be. And you need to kind of search for a toilet in the morning. And just do a lot of things that you don't normally do because it's easy accessible. But at the same time, you have time for that because it is what you do and it is how you live. So an average like week in my life, the thing is with van life, it doesn't come with the average week, actually, because I do so many different things. And it's a little bit hard to say what an average week is, and that's kind of the charm. But some weeks, also with the training, that's kind of the only thing I have structure on is the training. And I like to run like in circles on the track really far and just get into that meditative state of just running and not thinking about anything else. Not even, I'm not like the trail runner or anything, so I usually don't do a lot of trail and a lot of adventures in that sense. But then I do a lot of van life adventures, so I see a lot of beautiful places and then I run in my little circle.
Honestly, like you're saying, you run in the track in the circle. You could be doing 80 kilometers on a track. Like it's pretty wild. I feel like you're underselling yourself here. And I think it's so interesting how you talk about the like meditative state
Yeah.
that you go into, because there's probably several different stages. You start off and you think, okay, this is fun, I'm going to enjoy this. Then you'll probably hit a bit of a wall mentally where you're like, oh my goodness, this is so boring, please may this end. And then you probably get into that pattern, the meditative state, and you can enjoy the process of that. But it probably sounds like a lot of people's worst nightmare, which I'm sure they probably openly say to you. So what
Yeah.
do you love about running round in circles for literally hours?
So the thing is, that kind of I have done a lot of training on the mental aspect because I think just the head, like it's so much in your head when it comes to ultra running. And before I was always like, okay, I know I will hit a wall at 4 hours, and I was thinking like a lot, okay, now it's this far left, now I've run this far. But actually I've come to the conclusion that now on my last race, which was this weekend, 3 days ago, I ran 144 kilometers. And I was just like trying to be in the moment as much as possible. And I feel like I'm developing I don't know, my mental strength, because I feel like this time it was really the body that was just shutting down and I couldn't do anymore. I was really trying. And yeah, I mean, there's always some limits that you have mentally, and some people, like I also have my limits, but I feel like yeah, I'm coming closer to being where I want to be mentally, like mentally strong, and have it so that my body is what saying no before my mind. And that kind of process, just following that process and being able to run more and more, I don't know, it's something with it that I just love, and I just love it. It just sets my heart on fire. I feel like it's um it's something that I get like a specific feeling when I look at races and it's like this is what I want to do now. And it can be another race another time, like it doesn't have to be the same kind of thing, but yeah, I don't know, it's just the feeling.
I think that's so fascinating, though, the mental side of it. And I love to talk about the mental side of training because it's so important, as you say, it literally decides when you're going to finish, what you're going to achieve, what you're going to do. Obviously, physically you have a bit of it does affect that, the body side of it. But mentally, it's so huge. So I guess you, like a lot of people want to train their mind. But if you said, okay, well, we're going to train our minds and we're going to run around this track for 5 hours, they would say, I'm absolutely not doing that. Because sometimes I think the mental side of it still has to be a little bit appealing. That people want to train their minds to an extent. But to put yourself in that position of, I guess, pure boredom, it's probably a huge mental exploration about figuring out who you actually are, what you think. You have a lot of time to think about pretty much about everything and to know yourself so deeply. Has it actually been a like self-discovery process as well of who you are and what kind of goes on in your mind?
Yes, I think I figured out that I'm much more creative than I thought, in a way. Like I've always loved being creative, but in another way. And I have a lot of, like, in this society we have no boredom anymore, and just like I kind of lost that when the society just went on to this kind of high, just next high dopamine kind of thing. And yeah, all the creativity was just lost with, I think, a lot of people. And going back to just being bored, don't listen to music, don't listen to podcasts, just like running around in a circle. It kind of sparks a really creative, like you get creative, and I think that's a really beautiful side. And sometimes I feel like now I just want to listen to podcasts, and then I turn it off just after 30 minutes because my mind is just going into this, oh, now we're running, we're supposed to be creative, and it just disturbs the mind in a way. So yeah, I think it's really important to be bored, and I think we're not bored enough these times. It's so much going on.
I agree with you so much. So much. We're never bored. It's wild.
Yeah, I actually visited some of my old teachers yesterday, and they said that the kids, it's such a big difference in how they're thinking, because they have like TikTok and social media, and it's just like, it's so fast dopamine, and everyone's just not concentrated on anything. It's just a huge difference. Just 5 years ago when I went to school, they have seen such a big difference. So it's like, I'm a little bit scared about how it's going to go if we are not more bored.
We don't really know how to deal with that boredom, because we pick up our phone and we scroll on whatever it is, and if we don't get our fix of whatever in one app, we'll switch to another app, or we'll switch to something else, or we'll go on a deep dive. There's an endless amount of things that we can engage with, and I find it quite interesting when you say you try not to, I guess, clutter your mind with music or podcasts or whatever it is when you are running, because personally, I really don't listen to much music. I really don't listen to many podcasts, which I know sounds very terrible because I do podcasting. But I really enjoy that mental space, because I think it's so rare when you work online, when you do, if you're doing anything creative, you need to have that space to just think, to process things. Yeah. And I guess that's why a lot of people who are just every single spare moment they are listening to something or consuming something. I think then when you go to sleep, you turn the light out, and that's, I guess, the moment where mostly people have this first silence in the day, unless you intentionally decide, I'm going to not listen to something, which I think you have to do. It's that at that extent. I do that certainly. Then people have all of these thoughts that they start to process, which really leads into them not being able to sleep as well, because your adrenaline starts pumping because you're processing these things. You may have all of these creative ideas which you've been kind of pushing down within you through the day. And it's actually because we don't give ourselves that space to breathe, to think. But it's quite an unpopular opinion to not listen to music and not consume. So I find it, feel like I found a friend in it, which is nice. But I think it's just so rare.
I think it's important, like, if people want to listen to music and if that's what gets you out on the run, and I mean, sometimes, like, I listen to podcasts too, but I mean, I think it's really important to just turn it off sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I find myself also getting sucked into the phone and just like, I can feel how, especially if I open TikTok, like I don't open TikTok because I know that it destroys my brain in 10 minutes because I'm not used to it, right? So I can feel how the feeling is, and it's not a good feeling for me at least. But then also I do the social media creation, I create the content, so yeah, I don't know, it's kind of double in a way because it can also inspire a lot, and I've been really inspired by social media, and also finding, like, if I've been struggling with something, I found some kind of I can relate to people on social media, and that has kind of helped a lot. But when it has so many positive and negative sides, so it's a little bit tricky.
I think it's pretty much balanced. Pretty much everything in life is all about balance, It's not bad if you just listen to things, but just have a little bit of time with nothing in your ears. You can go on social media, you can do everything, but it's all about that balance of clarity of mind as well, and also knowing your limits. And talking about the positives and the negatives of social media, as a content creator, you kind of have mentioned on your Instagram about some negative comments that you get. And you kind of talk about your journey through having an eating disorder and that kind of journey, which a lot of athletes do deal with. Can you give me a bit of like background on that and how you kind of dealt with that journey while now you are an athlete and an ultra runner, and you kind of push through a lot of those difficulties to who you are today, and it's shaped you?
Yeah, so I think that the running actually, I started running because I started getting disordered thoughts and everything. But then I think the running was the thing that dragged me out of it, because I saw that if I don't eat, I get injured. I got a stress fracture. I couldn't walk for like 6 weeks, and then I had to like not run for a long time. And then it kind of opened up something that I kind of felt like yeah, if I don't eat, then I will not be able to run, and I love running. So I kind of developed this love for running, even though it started as something, yeah, to burn calories and stuff. So people noticed that I was not eating good and everything, but yeah, it was something that I kind of had to deal with myself in a way, and I think in a way it was a good thing that could I could come out of it myself with the help of running and not have to go into a clinic or something like that. And that, yeah, it was in a way a good thing. I think it's good to have help too. And I went to like the school therapist and everything to get help with that. But I think that also, like, for me in my situation, it was all right. I could feel very lonely in it, but yeah, it was how it was. And I mean, everyone has their struggles in, especially in the teenage years, and I could kind of find myself and my thing in it. And I was before I was so set on like I need high grades, I need straight A's, and I need to perform and everything. And after I kind of saw that it can destroy a lot of things, like, yeah, it was also like a performance thing, like I need to be the skinniest and the most beautiful and everything. And it was kind of the one thing I was good at it, so I thought, yeah, I can be the best at it. So when I kind of let that go, I also let the other performance things go, because I learned that it can destroy a lot of things, and it's not always good to have straight A's or to perform the best. And maybe life is just an adventure and we don't have to like hunt this I don't know, image in a way. So yeah, no one's perfect. I think about it sometimes, and yeah, it was probably something I had to experience.
It's interesting how you call it an image, because I think a lot of it is that front, that image of, perfect grades, a perfect figure, or whatever you're aiming for in this level of perfection that you deem as perfection, because equally it'll change for every single individual. But actually having that, like the reason for it, food is fuel, therefore you can go and you can run. If you don't do that, then you're going to get injured, you can't run, also you won't be able to run very far if you don't eat very much. And it's just interesting, that journey, but it is painful, and I think a lot of people, they do go through it, and on social media that does add that relatability. But again, it's a fine line between feeling, yeah, just the pressures of it as well. And I think that going through kind of your teenage years and your 20s, there's a lot of pressure, especially in this new age of social media, where you can be anything, you can be anyone, you can do anything, and it almost makes everybody freeze and think, okay, I can do anything, but I actually don't even know where to start or what that is. But I guess you kind of find your direction of, you want to be a runner, you want to live in your van, and you feel like you've got your authentic self within that.
Yeah, I feel like that. And also with like, I on social media, I think that was one thing that helped me a lot with recovery on my own. And I kind of want to give back, and I want to give back to what helped me, but at the same time it's a really balance between like, look, to not make people feel like failures. So like, yeah, you see me, I came this far and I recovered. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to balance it without triggering anyone, or without without making people feel bad about it. So it's kind of hard, because everyone's so different, and with social media, what I publish or what I put out there, I want it to just be something good. And when you touch on like sensitive topics, it's so hard to make it good for everyone. So yeah, it's kind of hard. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, should I post it? I don't know, because I just don't want to trigger anyone. I just want to inspire, and I just want to give out the same effect that I got from it. But yeah, for some people, social media doesn't work for that, and some people need to go and get more help from others than other people, and that's totally fine. Everyone has their own journey, and no one's perfect, and you just need to like feel what is the right thing for you, I guess.
And when you are growing up, as you started running age 15 and now you're age 20, so that's 5 years which are pretty formative within everybody's life, you know, the 15 to 20, and then I'd say, you know, 20 to 30 in their own ways are pretty formative years. And to have to, well, not to have to, you chose to dedicate those to ultra running, which ultimately means that a lot of the teenage things or young adult things of partying and friendship groups and university and all of these different elements, which kind of are all the different options you can do. Like, and then you may have FOMO, if you like, fear of missing out, if any, like, of things not that you're not doing, but then equally because you want to do the ultra running. How did you balance that and the pressures of choosing what to do? And actually, it's quite difficult, I think, when you're at that age, like 15, to decide this is what I want to do and this is what's true to me, because you're quite easily influenced, I'm speaking generally, when you're that age, I think.
Yeah. So I have always I've never been easy influenced by the people around me, but I've been really like insecure, but not really influenced by, like, I never liked partying. It's just something that I didn't like because I felt like it was repetitive. It was the same thing every time. And also with like my style, my clothing style, I've not been so, like, I've dared to just go my way and just wear the clothes that I want. So in a way, I've cared what people think about me, but I've not been easy influenced. So that's a big difference. Also, like, I never drank alcohol in here in Sweden. It's like very, very common that you start drinking at like 14, and it's legal to drink when you're 18. I've never, like, I've tried tasting, but I'm like, it doesn't taste good. So I never felt like I needed that, like, alcohol to be confident either. It's been kind of I don't know what the combination is, because I've been insecure, but at the same time I've been really confident in some things. So yeah, and people have been like, oh, come on, drink a little bit. I've been like, nope, absolutely not. And I know what it does to your sleep and everything. And I think it's totally fine to drink if someone wants to do that in teenage years. But it was just never my thing. And yeah, I might never drink. I might change my mind. I live in Italy right now, trying the different wines. I think it's very fun, even though I don't really like it. But I'm at least trying, like, okay, maybe I like it. Maybe I like it because I want to join the vibe, you know? But yeah, I don't know. It's never been my thing. And then from I was younger, like in middle school, high school, I was always like a little bit of the odd kid, and I went to a school in a place where it's really like you can really if you're not welcome, you get like pushed out of the group. And no, it's not like people are bullying you straight up like to your face. It's just like they freeze you out from the group. And yeah, if people freeze you out, you need to find other ways to, I don't know, then you feel like you are out of the pack anyway. Better do your own thing and survive on your own. So I always learned that. And when I came to the age, like from 15 to 18, 19, then I already kind of was confident in doing my own thing. And even though I had like really good friends and everything, like I found my people. And I think also when getting older, you kind of find your people more. And yeah, then you can be confident together.
There's so many people that are in the world that you could definitely find your people. A lot of it's through sport as well, and shared activity, shared interests in that sense. And back to ultra running, what is the furthest distance that you have ever run in one go?
One time I ran 162 kilometers. That was when I was 18. So it was like pretty young to be to be running that far. And it was in a 24-hour race. I felt like it went super bad, but like afterwards, I'm like, that's great. It's a good start, even though I didn't do the race. Like, it was like really fast in the beginning, really slow in the end, but still, like, yeah, cool. 100 miles.
People probably think about ultra running and running in general. A lot of the chat is about injury and injury prevention and recovering from injury. And of course, you're not just talking about, 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. You're literally running 100 kilometers, a lot of loads through the week as well. How do you mitigate against any injury or deal with an injury? Have you had much experience with that?
My theory is that if you don't run on some injury that you already feel, you don't get injured, because if you start feeling something, you just take a few days off. Like, it doesn't have to be many. If you just rest until you're fully back again, and then it won't be a long injury at all. Most injuries you can rest off in just 2 days. Sometimes if it's something that I have kind of one time I was sitting wrong and got some problems with my back, 5 days. If I would have continued running, I maybe would have been out for more, but I didn't. And I think even like the worst injuries, you can rest off in, if you don't continue running on them, you can rest them off in like 3 weeks. I think the problem is that people feel like something hurts a little bit and they're like, I can run anyway, it doesn't matter. And then it gets a bit worse, and then you kind of normalize it. And in the end, you're just there like, oh shit, now I have a chronic injury. I also do coaching, and as soon as some of my athletes, they're like, I feel something a little bit in my hip, I'm going to like try to run today. I'm like, nope, 2 days off, 2 days off. And if they protest, I'm like 3 days off, because it is really like that injury, you rest it off and then you're good to go again. So that's how I deal with it, and I learned that from my coach. So after I got my coach, I have barely had any injuries. Like if I had something, it's been either like acute injury that I fell or twisted something or something like that, or I've had something that has been for 2 days and then it's over.
Yeah, again, all about balance, isn't it? And listening to your body, because if your body's giving you those signs, it's probably trying to tell you something. And sometimes it's just as simple as that, yet we all overcomplicate it. And talking about training, what is your training plan looking like? Talk me through Monday to Sunday. What are your days kind of looking like at the moment of running?
So at the moment, right now, it's kind of like up and down because of the races and stuff. It depends so much on the week. I can take you through a week that I had, because then I did, not this winter, but the winter before, I did the same training week for 16 weeks straight, I think. Do you want me to take you through that? Because it's kind of...
Please do.
Yeah, I have always have 2 rest days per week. Or I do strength on those days. So on Monday, I did strength. It was not that much. It was maybe like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and just the heavy exercises. Not many reps, just 4 to 6. Tuesday, I had like some shorter intervals. Maybe it was like 3 minutes times 10, something like that. In the morning, often in the forest or like gravel, it was often like minutes training. Then in the evening, sometimes I did around 10-15 kilometers in the evening. Wednesday, 15 kilometers in the morning, 10 in the evening. Thursday, I had a bit of a calmer day. I usually did like an hour just orienteering or something like that. It was a session that was not too hard. It could be cycling or something. Friday, I did another strength session, the same as Monday. Saturday, I had one session for 16 weeks straight that I did every Saturday, and that was on the track. I did 10 kilometers warm up, and then 400 meters, 800 meters, 1200 meters, and 1600 meters, and then 1200 meters, 800 meters, 400 meters again. So it was like a pyramid, and then I did like 2 kilometers cool down. So that was that session. That session was like 22 kilometers long. And then every Sunday I did 6 to 7 hours long run, 9 kilometers per hour. So that means it was 54 to 63 kilometers. So it depends. Like in the beginning it was 6 hours, and in the end it was 7 hours. So that was around, like, those weeks were around 150 kilometers a week. So yeah, now I do probably around 100 to 150 kilometers in a training week. But that was kind of like a specific week that I did.
And how do you balance everyday life around that? Because yes, of course, that's a lot of running, a lot of hours, but it's tiring as well. You feel very exhausted by the end of the day, fatigued. You just need to rest. You also need to recover. But how do you balance, social things, obligations that your family's birthdays, whatever it is? How did you balance that round heavy training? And were you at school at that point as well?
Yeah, I was, but I did like 30% of school because I didn't manage to do everything. So, but it was like, it was all right. We had plans so that I can have the last year. I kind of divided it. So then the last year was like not much school. When I went to school, for example, I prioritized the training and I thought that like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to need the grades and I'm going to prioritize so that I just managed to get through. But I know I want to do with my life. I know that if I need the grades later, I'm going to manage to, it's not what you do when you're 18, 19, like it doesn't affect the rest of your life. If you don't get the best grades then, like you can still get in another way. Maybe it takes a little bit longer, but I mean, if you want to do something, you put in the effort anyway, and you learn something from it anyway. So I just prioritized the training, just managed to get through, barely, but I just tried to get through school, and it worked. But also friends and stuff, sometimes I just had to say no. If I was too tired, I had to say no to meeting with friends, and sometimes I could tell friends like, yeah, we can just watch a movie maybe because I'm too tired from training. So sometimes it went good and sometimes I didn't, I couldn't manage to do everything. So it's just about prioritizing what you want to do, like really want to do.
Yeah, and listening to your body as well. And I think when I hear you talk about that, I get a sense of like self-belief, which is very different to like ego or anything arrogant. It's self-belief in your ability and also where you're going, the direction. You're willing to put the work into it. You believe that if you do put the work into it, you can get there. And I think that that's such a big tool to use when you have an ambition such as that. And how did you develop that self-belief? If someone's kind of listening to this and thinking, okay, how do I get that level of self-belief and figure it out? What would your tips be for them?
So I am 100% sure that if you want to do something and if you work towards it, you will get there. It's just a question about how long the time will be before you get there, but you will definitely get there. And if you want to get somewhere and you work towards it, there is no way it's going to fail. It's just, you just have to have a little bit of luck too to kind of like get things to click. But also you need to get out there. Like when I first started with this, for example, I wanted to get recognized. I wanted to get people, I want to get sponsors. So then I go out to the newspaper. They are not going to come to me. I go out to the newspaper, say, this is what I have. You want to do an article. And then it just grows. And in the end, like podcasts and newspapers come to you. And I went to so many podcasts just like, hey, you want to have me on the podcast? And the worst thing that can happen is they say no. Just like get after it. Don't wait for something to happen. Also with sponsors, it's not like they're going to come to you. You need to reach out to them. You need to kind of hunt for it. I think the belief, I think it comes from my parents because they've always said like you can do anything you want. So yeah, but I'm pretty sure it works.
A lot of it is self-talk though, because we talk about the mental side of it. And a lot of the mental side, not only is it the mental toughness and the resilience element, but it's also that self-belief. What are you telling yourself? Are you telling yourself you're not going to be able to do this and you're going to fail at it and that you are a failure? Because ultimately, if you say that, it is going to manifest itself in some way, leading to that self-belief. Like, and it sounds really cringy, doesn't it? But that sort of, you are good enough, you are able to do this, you have put the work in. All of those things which kind of sound like quite self-help, which, you know, I'm not saying I'm against it, but it is a little bit cringy, but it works. You know, It is, what are you telling yourself? If you're going to, like, beat yourself up and you're supposed to be the number one person looking out for yourself, then it is going to have those implications. But as you say, going out searching for opportunities, I think it's quite rare, but it's so important to do that. You know, as you say, like, they're not going to come to you. You need to go to them, especially initially, which is I think that's such a good tip that a lot of people perhaps overlook because it's a bit embarrassing. It's a bit, you're putting yourself out there. But as you say, the worst thing they can say is no or not reply. And then you've literally lost nothing.
Exactly. As we grow up with this, like, you need to not take space. You need to not take up space. You need to do your thing. You need to do what is said that you should do. What works is just going outside of there, take up the space. Maybe people look at you and they're like, jeez, what is she doing? It will kind of build up it will build up some kind of base with everything, all the attention, even though no matter if it's good or bad, it will build up a base that will kind of grow into something beautiful in the end. And I think that, yeah, you might have some people that doubt you, but you don't have to listen to them. Just take up the space and go for it.
So running, I guess, any type of running, there will be ups and downs through each run. But when you do run very far distances, inevitably there will be some very good days and there will be some utterly terrible days. So what are some of the terrible horror stories that have happened to you on a run? Do you have any amusing stories that you can share?
Sometimes, especially when I was like 2 years younger, I was very naive and I thought I could do stuff that I couldn't do. So one time I signed up for Norway's toughest trail race. It was going to be, if you ran the whole thing, it was going to be 115 kilometers with, I think it was 8,000 meters of elevation gain, and it was like no path. It was wet and slippery and steep, and it was such a hard race. And I sat on the bus and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I went in with this like, I thought it was going to go much better than it went. But then actually, after like 6 hours, we were at this place where it was called the Wall. Like when I translate it from Norwegian, it was called the Wall. And it was like climbing without the security, like without the lines and everything. Okay. And you could do it with normal shoes, but it was like barely. You had to hold this like rope that was bleached from the sun. And I was like, this is going to shatter like at any point. And it was like, okay, my life is in that thing that is not going to hold me. I wasn't sure. And I had no experience at all with how to climb mountains. And it was actually like at one point when I was actually over the hard part, I was like, whew, I survived, never doing this again. I'm just going to complete the race now. So we came to a place where it was really steep. It was like you went out to this edge where you had maybe half a meter of just place where you could walk. It was like wet, and it was like moss on the edge. And yeah, to make a long story short, a person was falling in front of me, and you should never climb behind someone because then they drag you down if they fall. So a person fell in front of me, and I was like, it's 800 meters down. It was like on the cliff. And I was like, if this person doesn't catch herself now on the wet, slippery stones that she's gliding down now, screaming like she's going to die, which it was fair enough, then we're all going to die. But luckily, I don't know how she did it, but she managed to grab onto something. So I actually didn't see them again after that. I saw so that both of them were like out of the cliff because we actually went the wrong way. But that was like really scary. And then in the night, so that was after like 6 hours, I continued the race. And in the night, there was this thunder coming on the top. I was on the top of the mountain. It was thunder coming in, and it's really loud, the thunder on the mountain, and especially when I'd been running for 14 hours. I was so tired, and having that experience from before, I was so easily like scared. And even though the thunder was far away, I was like, I survived, but I had to DNF after half the race, after 4,000 meters of elevation, 17 and a half hours, and 64 kilometers, I think. So that was like the coolest race I've ever ran, but it was also the most scary thing I've ever experienced. And yeah, don't be naive, guys.
Yeah, I feel like that definitely qualifies as a bit of a horror story of that. Yeah, definitely. Gosh. And then in other news, to your van life, can you tell me the best thing about living in a van, but also the worst thing about living in a van? You can pick which one you do first.
Yeah, so I'll do the worst first. Not because I thought about it first, but because it's like better to have the best thing last.
Get it out of the way.
Yeah. So the worst thing is, so my van is 24 years old. And when I started van life, it had some fixes to do. And I got stuck so many places on so many just garage mechanics. Yeah, and I had to stand there for like 3 weeks straight, just on the garage. And I was stuck there and I felt like it was not a fun time. And it was also in Norway, in a place where it was raining, like straight. It was raining from day 1 to day 20, and it was just raining, and it was 4 degrees, and it was in the middle of July, and I felt like I was missing out on so much, because 4 degrees in the middle of July when it's supposed to be summer, and rain, and I was freezing because I didn't have any heat in the van, and everything was wet, so like the inside of the van got all moldy, and yeah, I don't know, it was not a good time, and I was just waiting for the day when it was over, because it was really hard. But then actually the best thing then, like, is that the highs are very high when the lows are low. So after that, I just met some Australians on the road, and then we started traveling and had the best week ever. And it was so nice, and just being able to go from there and have like a really cool week after that. It's kind of like, it's a roller coaster, but it's super nice. And you can just move around as you want to. You can be spontaneous, and yeah, you can be super spontaneous. So that's really nice. You can just meet Australians and go their direction instead of having a plan and having to follow your plans.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
And looking ahead for the rest of this year, what is coming up for you? What are you working towards?
So I have some projects. I have kind of like project plan A, plan B, plan C, because I know that, yeah, this is, I'm going to make a living out of it next year too. So I am planning for some stunts that I'm going to do. So it depends on what sponsors will sponsor, honestly, which stunt I will do, because I really like when I have sponsors to do something that is like very connected to the sponsor, and I like to do personalized. I just don't want to come up with a project and then choose sponsors for it. I want to choose a sponsor and then I'll choose the project.
What do you
like
mean by stunt?
Like running from one place to another really far, or running is a challenge. Potential sponsors coming up that I don't know. So it's a lot of things that I don't really know, and that's really exciting. But I think I will know more like closer to the end of this year, because now I've kind of done a lot that I was going to do for this year. So I'm going to do a little bit of a project. I don't know how much I can say about that, but after that project in September, I will probably take a little bit of a break and just see what I'm doing for the next year, and then I will start searching for sponsors. And I will also live in Morocco for the winter. So yeah, because it's like surf there.
In your van?
Warm. Yeah.
If someone wants to follow you along and keep up to date with seeing how you get on in Morocco, all of these projects that are coming up, where should they go?
So my Instagram is anna.simon.s, and I think that's the YouTube too. My name is Anna Simonsson-Søndenå. It's like a double name, which one is Swedish and one is Norwegian, so it's kind of hard to figure out, but I think you will find it if you search for my Instagram, and then you see I have a link tree with all my links to my YouTube and everything, all the articles and everything that are there. So I think Instagram is the best way.
I will link those below as well so people can check them out. And thank you, Anna, so much for coming on and talking all things ultra running, living in a van. But I also think we went rather philosophical about the pressures and also directions and being bored. I feel like if someone's listening and thinking, what should I take away? Give yourself some time to be bored. It's very interesting to kind of talk about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.